Hello and welcome to the virtual Tour de France. Well, it wouldn't be the Tour de France without the final day being in Paris, and today we arrive in the virtual version of Paris here on Zwift. We've had some wonderful racing over the last 3 weekends. This is the classification in the yellow jersey. Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank are firmly in the driving seat ahead of Team Drops in second place. So Lauren Stevens will be in the maillot jaune, the yellow jersey, on today's stage. The green jersey then, Canyon SRAM are the leaders. This is still to be decided. There are a lot of sprints along the way today, and Canyon SRAM have to have their wits about them to make sure they hold on to that green jersey by the end of tonight. The Queen of the Mountains has been hard fought. Drops held it all the time until yesterday. Tibco Silicon Valley Bank took it away from them on the final climb, and that means that they will win the Queen of the Mountains jersey at the end of today's stage. The best young rider is still to be decided as well. There are 4 teams really in contention, with Canyon SRAM on 43 points, Drops on 40. Let's remind you then how this competition works. Tour de France is normally on time for one rider. This time it's all about the team. Points are awarded, as you can see, at the end of each stage for the first 25 riders. And the points are accumulated. The team with the most points have the yellow jersey. Green jersey is the same, but that's about the intermediate sprints. There are 6 of them today, and also points at the stage finish for the top 10 riders at that point. Queen of the Mountains has all been about the different climbs. Again, a team classification. That was the point standings, but today there are no Queen of the Mountains. It's all a flat stage, or relatively flat, and so we'll just be awarding the green jersey points. But we do have to think about the white jersey. That's worn today by Krista Riffle. She will be in that jersey because right now the Canyon SRAM team are the leaders, and there are points for the first 10 riders born after 1st of January 1995 who will be in that contest today. Team classification will also be decided at the end of today's stage, and that is a accumulation of all the points across all the different disciplines, and currently at the top of the standings, Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. You can get involved as well. There is a Twitter poll. If you go to @LeTour, the Tour de France feed, you can decide who is your most aggressive rider of the stage. Zwift, of course, is the platform we're on. It is a game as well as an athletic endeavour, so there are 5 power-ups that the riders can use and will use throughout the race, and we'll try and explain those as we go. Here's the lineups of the teams. Lauren Stevens there for Team Tibco, heading the team. She's in the yellow jersey. Leah Dixon will be in the Queen of the Mountains jersey today. The team of Drops have got April Tacey back in their mix today, so we'll see whether she can take an unprecedented 3rd stage victory. And there's some other huge names in this field today who are looking for the race win. Here's the profile. Along the way then we have 6 intermediate sprints plus a sprint to the finish, 6 laps of 6.6 kilometres plus a lead in a neutralised section, to make the total race distance of 42.8 kilometres today. Now here we are with the Peloton. We've already covered 10 kilometres. We're coming up to the intermediate sprint, the second of the intermediate sprints, and it looks like Danny Christmas is the rider at the front who's trying to go for this. Nina Kessler is in second place for the Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, so they're heading up now towards this intermediate sprint point, which you probably know from your time watching the Tour de France. But right at the front here, as they reach the line, it looks like Nina Kessler was first across the line for Tibco. Danny Christmas again doing a good ride today, there in second place, but we'll get confirmation of the points as they went through. Right now, in terms of green jersey points, through the first sprint it was Canyon SRAM who took 14 points, so they increased their tally. Here is Nina Kessler riding for Tibco, just making sure that she knows exactly what is going on for this Tibco team. They have so far ridden a superb series of races. Now she's just rolling along at 289 watts. This Champs-Élysées course is, I would say, pretty much the same as the Champs-Élysées in terms of the way it's been built. Here's Lauren Stevens in the yellow jersey. She's in a different location now. She was originally riding in the USA. Now it looks to me like she's back in Europe. And she's in the yellow jersey today. The stage winner, of course, of stage number 2, where she beat Joss Loudon and Erica McNaughty into 2nd and 3rd places. Lauren Stevens looks so easy when she's riding these races, and she's putting in a huge effort. She's just sitting there in the peloton itself. As we roll downhill, remember the Champs-Élysées uphill on the right hand side, downhill on the other side, and normally the rider's able to roll along at 60k an hour. So confirmation then that Kessler took 10 points. Then it was Danny Christmas, the British rider from Lotto Soudal, in 2nd. Alice Barnes securing some more points for the Canyon SRAM team, but Tibco scoring some tremendous points there, getting a 7 points and a 6 points. And so far today, that means that Tibco have secured a total of 36 points in that contest, and Canyon have 22. And so far today, the gap is 17 points. So I think we are looking at the possibility of that jersey could change hands to Tibco if Canyon SRAM don't start to secure some points very, very quickly. Well, as we watch the peloton,
winning stage
let's hear from Rachel Hedden.
Tour de France last weekend was huge for Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. We've been racing a lot on Zwift, really learning the skills and techniques that it takes to race on a virtual platform, which are different to racing on the road. But this is by far the biggest race to date, so to pull off a win on this stage was fantastic. The riders are racing on 3 different continents, so to be able to work together as a team the way they did, and to put the plan into action was a real testament to how hard they've been working together. Now that we have the yellow jersey, we're going to be fighting hard to keep it all the way to Paris, and if we can pull off another stage win along the way, then that will really be the icing on the cake. For the next 2 stages, for Saturday's flat stage, we're going to be looking to sprinter Nina Kessler and standout newbie Kristen Faulkner, who's really taken to the Zwift platform. And then for stage 4, Lauren Stevens and Leah Dixon will be our go-to riders.
Lauren Stevens in the yellow jersey. 14 kilometres have been covered so far. The next intermediate sprint is at 17.86. 18 minutes of racing have gone by. 28 kilometres to go. And this is the final stage of the virtual Tour de France. And still a very big peloton of riders. As we take a look here at the front, and towards the front is Marianne Vos, and there she is. There is Marianne. She hasn't ridden any of the stages so far, but of course she knows what it's like to win on the real Champs-Élysées, gritting her teeth at the moment just to stay at the front of the race. She was the winner of La Course on the Champs-Élysées in 2014, but in terms of Zwift, Marianne doesn't really race on Zwift too much. Here's Leah Dixon. Leah Dixon does race on Zwift a lot, riding for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. But Marianne Vos, of course, she won La Course. She's a multiple world champion at so many different disciplines. But in terms of Zwift, she's ridden only 351 kilometres on Zwift. She's a level 8 rider. The riders graduate up the different levels the more they ride. And Marianne, although she doesn't ride on here too much, she's won races on Zwift in the last few months during lockdown. She is also guided by one of her teammates, Ashley Moorman-Passio, on Discord, who acts as the team director for Zwift, because unless she's racing, of course. As we take a look here at Krista Riffel, riding for Canyon SRAM. Very warm where she is, so someone helping her out by just giving her a little bit of cold water on her just to keep her cool. It's very, very warm now in certain areas of Europe, and the riders need to keep as cool as possible. And Krista today in the white jersey, best young rider. She had a really good stage, the first stage that she rode in this virtual Tour de France. And then the second time, she cracked on the second day, just found the tempo just a little bit too much for her. Now the group is starting to diminish in numbers. Just having a quick little look. There's a bit of a group here with Krista Riffel in it. And she is in the chase group in the white jersey, so she's not able to go with the acceleration. Towards the front is the group that contains all the big favourites. And Riffel here in that group. Now towards the front, we see the likes of Marianne Vos, Julie Leth. Also in the group, Lauren Stevens. Also in the group, Lotte Kopecky, a world champion of the Madison, as we make our way through the line again. And as we take a look here at the group, everyone moving around in terms of their avatars. Lauren Kitchen now up near the front, also in here Chloe Dygert. Dygert so far in the racing, as we see her revs at the moment, 280 watts, looks very composed at 70 revs a minute, riding a huge gear, 168 beats a minute, so she's well in control. She seems to be very, very comfortable today. Chloe Dygert so far 5th on stage 1 and 4 and 2nd on stage 3, and hearing about her aims for this weekend, she wants to win here on the Champs-Élysées for the Team 2020. Now this young rider is a rider that everyone's got to know, April Tacey. She's having to work hard here. Her heart rate for me has been really, really high today. I've been looking at her heart rate while she's been racing, and it's been up as high as 206 beats a minute. I don't know if that's because her heart rate monitor's not quite working properly, because now it's now at up 199, so she's really working at an exceptionally high tempo right now. She tends to ride a small gear, 91 revs a minute. Today, this looks like it's hurting her. She's already won 2 stages, stage 1 and stage 4. She loves the sprint, but it's very, very painful this stage because the uphill sprint really hurts. Right, we're coming up to the intermediate sprint. Let's see who takes this. It's all important for Canyon SRAM and Tibco, as Newsom of Tibco goes first across the line. Alice Barnes is second. Nina Kessler of Tibco was also up there. So this tussle for this green jersey is becoming very interesting indeed. Tibco are riding superbly at the moment. Look at the face on Emily Newsom. Well, if you're sitting at home and you're thinking this is just a virtual avatar style race and the riders just roll along, it certainly isn't. It's so tough. Round the Arc de Triomphe, the virtual Arc de Triomphe at the western end of the Champs-Élysées, going through the Place de Charles de Gaulle, was started to be built on the 15th of August 1806, and it opened on the 29th of July 1836. And you can't do this on the Tour de France, flying between the archway to find the peloton. And we're going to start to go downhill again. We wait for the points of the intermediate sprint to come up shortly, because I think Tibco Silicon Valley Bank are putting themselves in a position to try and win all the classifications. Lauren Stevens sitting towards the back. She rides very intelligently on Zwift. She's ridden so much on this platform, has got one of the highest kilometers of any of the riders. You can see the way she just rolls along. doesn't ever look under any massive pressure until it gets towards the end of the race. Top left of the screen then. Don't forget that the hashtag is TDF United. You can donate to any of our 5 charities that we're supporting throughout this virtual Tour de France. If you want some more information, look at the Tour website or look at TDF United on social media. You can get all the information that you are looking for. Lotte Kopecky now at the front. Now this looks to me like the second group, which is a bit of a surprise because one of the race favourites is in here, and this is Tanja Ereth in a chasing group, which I'm a little surprised about. And also in this group, looks to me like it could be Evie Kuipers. Tanja Ereth having a tough day. She was the stage winner, of course, of stage number 3, and I would have said she was a rider that we would anticipate would win today's stage. But it's not to be today for Tanja Ereth. Last week she looked so in control. Today you can see sweating profusely. She was nothing like that last weekend. Today she really is feeling the pressure of this race on the Champs-Élysées. These riders rolling along at anywhere between 45 and 50 kilometers an hour all the time. So Canyon SRAM have lost a key rider in this race. Leah Kirchmann, she's in this group as well. Now Leah, of course, has finished second in La Course and also third in La Course the day that Marianne Vos won in 2014 in Paris. But Leah in that group with Tanja Ereth, 2 riders that we might have anticipated could win a sprint on the Champs-Élysées. So it's going to be an interesting finish with riders like that having been dropped. Also in that group for CCC Liv is Marta Lach. Now we're getting very close to the next of our intermediate sprints. As we take a look at our lead group. And the lead group, I think, I'm just trying to see how many riders have made it into this front group. I think it's around 29 riders are still in contention. April Tazier towards the front now, so she seems to have got into her stride. Leah Dixon, the Welsh rider for the American team Tibco, and Leah has finished 4th on stage 1. And also finished in the same position on stage 4 and stage 5, so she's very consistent. 4th places all the way through. We'll see whether she can produce a win today, but certainly not without a possibility. But I wonder whether Team Tibco are going to lead out one rider, Lauren Stevens, to try and take the win. Marianne Vos, the face of a great champion. Marianne Vos, such a talented rider in all disciplines. Absolutely incredible bike rider. She's just keeping the concentration going. 33 years of age now. 3 times World Road Race champion. 5 times the winner of Flèche Wallonne. Lauren Stevens looks so composed and in control there, doesn't she? Doesn't look like she's under any pressure whatsoever. Marianne Vos then, 25 stage wins in the Women's Giro. Winner of the Olympic Games in 2012 in London, beating Lizzie Deignan into 2nd place. Winner of La Course on 2 occasions, 2014, 2019. The group being whittled down all the time under the pace. As we make our way across the line again, 23 kilometres have already been covered. We're over halfway. And another little attack at the front. And it looks like it's coming yet again from Danny Christmas. This British rider rides for this Belgian squad, the Lotto Soudal team. Now, as you can see, above the riders, little icons starting to appear, particularly as we make our way uphill. And a number of the riders are using the draft power-up. There are 5 different power-ups that the riders can use. They get them each time they go underneath an arch. So in particular, when they get to the intermediate sprint point or the finish line, they will pick up a new power-up. That power-up, you can see the draft one, increases the draft effect by 50% for 3 seconds. So it enables the riders to sit in the group a little bit easier for a period of time, get a little bit of a rest. As we see April Tacey there on the left-hand side. Still working at 196 beats a minute. She's able to output high power and be able to deal with that exertion and that feeling that having a heart rate that high gives you. Still, she looks like she's able to concentrate and be pretty composed on what is going on here on this race itself. Back with one of the riders from Team 2020. This is Shayna Paulus. So far, 2020 have had a good race over the last few weeks. They're lying 3rd in the Best Young Rider competition. Shayna Paulus will be one of the riders who I think will count towards that as we get towards our intermediate sprint. This is the 4th of them, and it looks like another contest between Emily Newsom at the front and Danny Christmas. And Emily Newsom of Team Tipco securing more points. Nina Kessler was also up there for Tipco in 3rd place, I think. And Lauren Stevens was there. For me, Team Tipco are going to take this green jersey if they continue like this. Power up being used by the rider at the front wearing number 4, Emily Newsom. She just ignited her lightweight power up. That was the green icon you saw above her, reducing her weight by 9.5 kilos for 15 seconds. It gave her just a chance to have a little bit of a rest. And a rider using and igniting the cloak power up. So it makes you invisible to other riders for 10 seconds. And one rider's using that to try and attack. And it looks like the rider who used it was Christine Majeras, the Luxembourger from the Boels Dolmans team. 47 kilometers an hour. Today, no doubt, is not about the climbers. Today is about those power riders who are able to ride at a high threshold, as we call it, able to deal with the speed, able to deal with the power output, able to deal with the accelerations. As we get the confirmation of that sprint, Danny Christmas took it with 10 points. Emily Newsom was in 2nd, Kessler 3rd, Stevens 4th, Dixon in 5th. That means that as things stand now, Tipco have secured 94 points in the green jersey just on today's stage, which certainly is putting them into the green jersey, because Canyon SRAM were the leaders. They had 214 points to 197. And the Canyon SRAM team have now only secured 31 points. So Tipco Silicon Valley Bank looking like they are in the driving seat for that. In the peloton then, Lotte Kopecky there on the left-hand side. Very talented track rider, very good sprinter. World champion of the Madison with Jolien Dora. Belgian rider riding for Lotto Soudal Ladies. She won the first ever Madison World title for women with Jolien Dora about 3-4 years ago. But she's in there and she's riding strongly, and she's always near the front of this group, putting out 4.1 watts per kilo as she rolls along at 45 kilometers an hour. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the virtual Tour de France. We're on the final day of racing, the women's race first, and then we bring you the men's race. The front group of riders being reduced all the time. There's still around 30 riders in that front group, as you can see from the timeline. In fact, 26 riders, and the gap back to the second group on the road is now 2 minutes 17 seconds. Second group on the road does include Jolien Dora and Tenniel Campbell, Leah Kirschman. This is Tanya Ereth's group. This is the second chasing group. Tanya Ereth in the green jersey. But that green jersey, remember, it's a team competition, is going to disappear to Team Tibco at the moment, who have got their tactics absolutely perfect. And I don't doubt that Drops will be on the hunt for the white jersey as well, with April Tacey in that front group of riders. That's their trump card to play to try and take the white jersey away from Canyon SRAM as well. Now, Canyon SRAM is a team that support Zwift in a big way. They've got the Zwift Academy, and Tanya Ereth is a winner of the Zwift Academy. It's how she got her pro contract with this team. So they race and ride on Zwift a lot. They understand the game. But some days you just have a bad day. You just don't have quite the legs that you had the week before. And I have to admit, when you look at Tanya Ereth last week, she did a huge amount of training on Zwift the week before. She was thoroughly focused on trying to win the stage. Just today hasn't quite worked out for her. .8 kilometres to go. Kirsten Wield now towards the front. Kirsten Wield riding for the Sarah Tizet team. Second in La Course in Paris, when Marianne Vos was the winner. As we make our way out of the tunnel, slight uphill section, only a tiny uphill, and we make our way along, of course, back towards the Place de la Concorde. Alison Jackson of Team Sunweb in this group. There she is. Looks like Sunweb are all in the same place to me. They quite often, a lot of the riders live in around the Sunweb main centre in the Netherlands, and I think Alison and Leah Kirschman have mostly been there for the last few weeks, although Leah went back to Canada for a while. Power up being used by one of the Valcar riders at the back. You can see the little icon above them. That's the aero power up. That means the rider becomes more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. Again, gives them a little bit of a rest while we are rolling along. And Lauren Kitchen now on the front of the peloton. Making our way then back to the Place de la Concorde. Place de la Concorde, the largest square in the French capital, as we pass the obelisk of Luxor and head back onto the Champs-Élysées. This group of riders getting smaller all the time, but all the big names we anticipated are in the group as we make our way back uphill now. The riders who ride Zwift a lot, they get to know how their avatar moves within the peloton. Lauren Kitchen doing a lot of work at the front. And the drafting does work, so the riders are able to sit in the slipstream and draft, as we see Krista Doble-Hickok from Rally Cycling. Rolling along, high revs per minute Krista tends to ride. But she's doing well in there. She was looking forward to the sprints. She said this morning on Twitter that she saw 7 sprints today, and for her that was very good news indeed. So Christa Doble-Hickok, the rally team have had a great virtual Tour de France. They of course have got a stage victory already in the men's race. As we take a look here at multiple world champion Megan Jastrab of rally cycling, another member of that team. Megan's been saying she's been trying out the tactics that Holden has given them. As you just saw her press her screen, that meant that she ignited the power-up, so she's now using the aero power-up. That's the little aero helmet you can see. Makes her more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. And this is Sandra Levenet riding for the French team Arkea. Just towards the back of the group. Seen too much of the French Arkea team so far in the racing. Coming up towards the next of our intermediate sprints. And Lauren Stevens on the front, as always. Just went through there with Leah Dixon on the wheel, and Tibco really are starting to put everybody under a little bit of difficulty through the intermediate sprint and round the Arc de Triomphe again. And look at this, the breakaway group of riders. Nanny Christmas is clear, having gone through that intermediate sprint. Lauren Stevens is with her, Newsom is with her, and they really are trying to line this one out now to put riders under all sorts of pressure. Nanny Christmas, a former athlete, really is thriving over the last 2 days. Don't forget that you can vote for your most combative rider. Go to the Tour's Twitter feed, visit @LeTour, and you can vote for your most aggressive rider of the day. Confirmation again that Danny Christmas took maximum points, but look at that behind her. Kessler, Stevens, Dixon secure more points to put their team now in the green jersey. So far, Tibco Silicon Valley Bank have scored 122 points in the green jersey today. Canyon SRAM 31 only. So they really are showing Canyon SRAM a clean pair of wheels today. Lauren Stevens, maths teacher, now professional bike rider, 164 beats a minute. Still so under control, isn't she? Here's her teammate, Leah Dixon. You can see the comparison, 181 beats a minute. All the riders will be talking on Discord on the gaming channel. See, Leah's got her earpiece in, and Rachel Hederman, the team director, will be talking to all of her riders, giving them instructions and making sure they know exactly what is going on. Lauren Kitchen now for FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope, Australian rider. As you can see from the mascot that she's got there on the camera, a koala bear is with her. She's returned to Girona in Spain, having been in Australia during lockdown. She was allowed to come back for the start of the season. Former Oceania champion. And Lauren Kitchen riding really strongly in here. She's a very good rider to have next to you in a bike race. She's just started her mentorship program. She's mentoring a couple of young athletes. She advertised that on Instagram during lockdown and on her social media, and said she wanted to mentor a couple of riders. So she's taken them on now, and she's giving her guidance and a knowledge back to some young riders to help them out, which I think is very, very admirable. 9.1 kilometres of racing remain in the virtual Tour de France. We're coming to the end, not just of the stage, but of the race overall. Lotte Kopecky still towards the front. Well, I think we know where the green jersey is going to go now. The front group of riders are still, in terms of numbers, just looking to see how many riders are left now in that front group. I think it's now dropped down to 25 riders in the front group, but still big names. Lauren Kitchen, Alice Barnes is in there, riding for Canyon SRAM. This is Evita Muzic, another rider from FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope. This team is growing in stature all the time. They've just started to sign their riders on 2-year contracts. Cecilia Utrup Ludwig is one of their riders. Lauren Kitchen has just signed a new contract as well. The French rider Evita Muzic, just trying to stay there in that front group and riding well so far. Shayna Paulus of Team 2020. Riding in the first 7 riders now in Zwift, so she's staying in the right place. Still looks very, very comfortable. You can see the eyes really focused on what's going on, and it's a funny sensation on this platform that you actually get yourself in that mindset of sitting in a group and you see the riders moving around you all the time. The algorithm is very interesting indeed to ride with. When you get that feeling of being in a peloton where you need to move up, you're always told by your team director to keep moving up, move towards the front, stay out of trouble. And because of the moving formation of the avatars, you actually start to get that feeling when you're riding on your smart trainer in Zwift. As we come up to 1 kilometre to go to the penultimate lap being completed, we'll go through, we'll get 1 lap to go. The riders will start to get that little nervous feeling as Lauren Stevens takes a little drink, downs that totally. Lauren Stevens, glad it wasn't a shot or something. In the yellow jersey then, towards the back of the group. Can she bring home another win? She's already won stage number 2 as we go back across the Place de la Concorde. The fountains, as always, down there in this huge square in the French capital. And I must admit, you have to take your hats off to the programmers of this Zwift platform, because the way they've built this virtual world is incredible. Because normally, today, we would be sitting just here towards the left-hand side of your picture with all the TV broadcast trucks bringing you the final stage of the Tour de France, and watching this, it's not far from the true thing, the way they've built it. It's very, very impressive. 1 lap of racing to go now in the Women's Virtual Tour de France. Who's going to win this stage? There are some fast sprinters in here. April Tacey, 2 stage wins, is in here. Nina Kessler, Chloe Dygert, who really desperately wants to win this stage. Ellen van Dijk is in here. The world champ, a current world champion, Megan Jastrab. Alice Barnes, a fast sprinter. There they are, all the riders across the world in their various pain caves as they get ready for the race finish if they're in the front group. Also in the group, Leah Dixon, Kirsten Wield is in here as well, who's a very, very fast sprinter. Lotte Kopecky is in the group too. Suzanne Anderson finished 7th in the World Championships. Here is Chloe Dygert. Chloe Dygert, of course, world champion of the time trial, obliterated the opposition in Yorkshire just a few months ago. Rolling along at 355 watts. There is April Tacey, 6th place at the moment, 4.7 watts per kilo. The faces of these riders, you can see just that little bit of pain now and then being notched on the face of April Tacey. Danny Christmas goes on the attack again with 8.2 watts per kilo as she heads towards this intermediate sprint at the top of the Champs-Élysées. Danny Christmas has done this pretty much every time of the intermediate sprints. Rumbling over the cobbles. The riders on the certain smart trainers, one of the makes, you get the sensation of riding on the cobbles. So it might not be too comfortable for some riders this afternoon. Underneath the green Skoda banner there, and Danny Christmas takes the intermediate sprint and immediately relaxes a little bit, brings her revs per minute down to 64 and lets the peloton catch her up. Second place again was Lauren Stevens in the yellow jersey. Well, there's no doubt for me that Tibco are going to be in green. They've scored 139 points in the green jersey contest today. Canyon Schramm 35. 104 points is the difference as we go past the Arc de Triomphe on Place Charles de Gaulle, and then we go downhill for the final time. The Eiffel Tower in the background. Opened, of course, in 1889 for the World's Fair. As we catch the peloton up, Garzini is up here as well, another fast sprinter from Italy. 4.5 kilometers to go. It's going to go very quickly. It's going to be around 5 and a bit minutes of racing now. Lauren Stevens looking for this final victory. Remember, in the field, April Tacey has won 2 stages. Lauren Stevens has won 1. Tanya Erith no longer in the front group. Also in this group, Christine Majerus, of course, lives in towards Paris, so she'll be thriving on riding here on a virtual Champs-Élysées. Emily Newsom is also in here. Just looking to see where Marianne Vos is, to see if she's still in this group. Megan Jastrab is in the group. I don't see Marianne Vos, but we'll keep having a little look to see if she's made it into this group. Is she up towards the front? Confirmation then of the green jersey on the right hand side of your screen. Tim Tibco 336 points, Canyon Schramm on 249 and drops on 166. Now there are points at the finish line, of course, as we make our way fast downhill. The team director of Team Tibco, Rachel Hederman, is now with Lauren Stevens alongside her, just trying to keep an eye on what's going on. Can't see Marianne Vos in this group, so we're not going to see the multiple world champion, I don't think, win today's stage, but there are some riders now getting themselves ready. 3 kilometers of racing to go. Is Jastrab going to have it again? Chloe Dygert, world champion of the time trial, is moving up towards the front now. Alice Barnes is there. Alison Jackson is a very, very good sprinter for Team Sunweb. Also in here, wearing number 101, is Ellen van Dijk of Trek Segafredo, who've not had a great race over the last few weeks, but they could bring home a victory here. Now they turn right and make their way down towards the Place de la Concorde before we swoop underneath the tunnel. 2.5 kilometers to go. 40 kilometers have been covered already. Megan Jastrab, can she bring home a big win for Rally on the virtual Champs-Élysées this afternoon? And now it's starting to work. Kirsten Wield comes forward for Sarah Tizit, WNT, the German team. She didn't enjoy the mountain stages, but she's going to enjoy this finish. She's one of the fastest sprinters in the world, and she's getting ready to unleash one. 331 watts now for Kirsten Wield just to stay in the group. Lauren Kitchen on the front, putting out 5.3 watts per kilo. A lot of power now going through these smart trainers at home from all these riders. Can we get a surprise victory this afternoon? Alison Jackson now towards the front. Doble Hickok is also there for her team. Competitivity prize, Marianne Vos. So Marianne Vos is named as the most aggressive rider by the Twitter poll. Esther Van Veen towards the back for the Park Hotel Valkenburg team. We're going to come out the other side. 1.4 kilometers to go. Christine Majerus is there for the Bowles Dolmans team. drops with April Tacey up towards the front yet again, trying to go clear as Krista Doble-Hickok of Team Rally. Wearing number 91 is Suzanne Anderson, the young Norwegian rider. Coming up to the Flamme Rouge with 1 kilometre of racing to go. Towards the back for Arkea is Sandra Levene. She's moving her way up. So 1,000 metres of racing to go on the final stage of the Women's Virtual Tour de France. Lauren Stevens getting ready. Rachel Hederman alongside her. She's going to give her as much encouragement as possible to try and win this stage. Have they got power-ups? That's what they're looking for. There are 5 power-ups. Remember, the best ones to use on this situation are the aero power-up if you have it. Makes you more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. And the riders, of course, have to choose when they use it. Looks like someone's getting ready to press the power-up that April Tacey has. One rider now uses the aero power-up. Chloe Dygert is getting ready. Has she got a power-up to use? She's keeping an eye on the screen. Dygert getting ready. Krista Doble-Hickok's going to lead round the corner. Dygert getting ready to unleash the sprint on this uphill power sprint to the line. You can see all the little icons being unleashed. Loads of riders with aero power-ups. Going to the front is Chloe Dygert. Also up there is Ellen van Dijk. Lotte Kopecky is there as well. Alice Barnes. Lauren Stevens now goes for Team Tibco. Lauren Stevens unleashes her sprint as they hit the finish line. Who's got it? It looked to me like it might be Lauren Stevens from April Tacey. And who takes it? Lauren Stevens, I think, may well have taken the victory, but we'll wait for confirmation. 56 minutes and 39 seconds. Did Lauren Stevens? She says she's got it. Lauren Stevens wins for Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. She's happy with that. She takes 2 wins in the virtual Tour de France. High fives all round between her and Rachel Hederman. She wins it by 0.07 of a second from April Tacey. Georgia Simmerling was in third, 0.17 seconds down. Chloe Dygert in fourth. Alison Jackson in fifth and Alice Barnes in sixth place. But what a win from Lauren Stevens. She finally beats April Tacey. Tacey has had such a great Tour de France. Chloe Dygert, a little wry smile on her face. She tried every single stage to win. And so far she's had so many top places, but today it's Lauren Stevens who takes it. Chloe Dygert unleashed 4.2 watts per kilo as an average, 168 beats a minute, but Lauren Stevens is very, very pleased with that performance. She looked comfortable all the way through, so did Chloe Dygert. Chloe might have gone just a little bit early. Here's the sprint as they make their way to the line. That iconic vision of that camera going alongside the riders. Stevens, Tacey left it just a little bit late, and Chloe Dygert was just behind. Georgia Simmerling, her teammate, just in front of her. Look at all the power-ups being ignited. All the riders had aero power-ups, so making them all aerodynamic for 15 seconds. So it was a little bit of a balance between power and also unleashing your power up at the perfect moment, which Lauren Stevens managed to do. It was very, very close. Let's take a look then at the classification. Confirmation then that Lauren Stevens of Team Tibco wins ahead of the sensation in this virtual Tour de France, April Tacey of Team Drops. In third place, Georgia Simmerling of Team 2020, just ahead of her teammate, world champion of the time trial, Chloe Dygert. Then it was Alison Jackson and Alice Barnes of Canyon SRAM. There's the makeup of the top 10 with Lotte Kopecky in 10th place. Great celebration from Lauren Stevens. And a very, very tired April Tacey. Well, she's really done her team proud over the last 3 weekends. We'll wait then for the various classifications to be worked out, and then I'm sure we're going to hear from Lauren Stevens as well after her second stage victory, and giving, of course, Team Tibco the victory in this virtual Tour de France. I'm pretty sure we'll wait for the classification to come up on the screen. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a jostling around of the overall classification by the end when we take a look at it. The last 3 weeks has put women's cycling on a great profile with the various racing we've had. We've had a chance to see the various athletes who take part in women's road racing all across the world. And we've seen some great tussles as well. All those aero power-ups being used. Lauren Stevens gets the power absolutely right. Tacey just left it a little bit too late. Well, great to see the yellow jersey win on the Champs-Élysées. As we look across the Arc de Triomphe then, we are going to turn our attention to hear from the winner of today's stage, Lauren Stevens of Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, taking her second stage victory today, but a sweet one in the Paris stage. Lauren Stevens, congratulations. You've won on the final stage of the virtual Tour de France. A sweet stage, of course, on the Champs-Élysées. What's your emotions on taking that stage victory? And Lauren, of course, your team have ridden so well over the last few weeks. I'm not hearing you, so I hope you're hearing me okay. But your team have ridden so well over the last few weeks. What was the plan for today?
Rachel Hederman Zoom.
Ah, we can hear you now, Lauren. So I hear you okay.
All right.
Let's start again. We'll start again. Talk us through your emotions on winning that stage on the final stage of the virtual Tour de France. Sorry, Lauren, we don't hear you again now. Well, we're going to try and get Lauren Stevens back, I think, because at the moment we're not hearing her too well. We'll work on that interview and see if we can get her. I think, actually, the problem is she's got her hand over the microphone. But there we go. We will get her back as quickly as we possibly can.
Tell them to unmute yourself and say Rachel Hederman.
I am unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, we can be on Rachel Hederman's Zoom.
Okay, Rachel, thank you very much. Let's get Lauren back on the back onto Let's have them together. There's a good idea. Let's have you both together and we'll just chat to you quickly. First of all, Lauren, we couldn't hear you. So your emotions on winning the stage on the virtual Champs-Élysées in Paris.
Oh, it's been an incredible team race. Winning the yellow jersey as a team and winning the final stage was more than we expected coming into this first women's tour, virtual Tour de France.
What was your plan today in terms of the team working around about you to be able to unleash that final sprint?
Yeah, we came into the stage today focused on taking the green jersey. We knew we were going to keep the yellow jersey, so we made a plan to keep the green jersey. And I think a hard, controlled race is the best for our team. And that's what we did today.
Well, it was wonderful to see the way that you've all ridden over the last few weeks. You truly have shown how to ride on Zwift. Rachel, the team, you've ridden with riders across, I think, 3 different continents over the last 3 weekends. How's it been as the team director, just bringing this all together and making this happen?
It's been a lot of fun, but it's been hard work too. Trying to coordinate, if nothing else, just time zones. You know, we've had riders racing at 4 in the morning and 11 at night, but the riders all fully bought into the idea and were committed to racing. So we've made sure that we've communicated during the week leading up to the races. So we've done our planning and our preparation, and then on race day we're communicating really well with each other during the race. So I think that communication has been key.
Now, this team is one of the, in terms of sponsorship, is one of the oldest sponsors in women's cycling. I can remember from the start of the 2000s in California, the start of Team Tibco. But this is a huge stage for you, isn't it? What's it been like in terms of the reception from fans to be now the winners of the virtual Tour de France?
We've had a fantastic reception. You know, obviously like you say, the Tibco and Silicon Valley Bank have been sponsoring the team for 15 years. But this is the biggest race that we've done, the biggest stage that we've performed on. And so to be able to perform as a team on this size of stage for our sponsors has been incredible.
Well, Rachel, Lauren and all the team, thank you very much. Many congratulations. Enjoy the victory.
Thank you.
Well, we got there in the end. A few little interaction tech problems, but we managed to get to talk to both of them together, which is always a nice way to finish things off. Rachel Hederman, the team director of Tibco, Lauren Stevens, the rider who's won 2 stages. Let's take a look at the classification then. After 6 days of racing, Team Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank win the virtual Tour de France for women. 499 points. In second place, 2020 gets on the podium, and the British team of Drops finish in 3rd place. Well, Team Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank, as Rachel said, those sponsors have been with them for 15 years. And they also today got the green jersey as well. Look at that for a points total. They started the day in 2nd place and they come out as the winners of the green jersey ahead of Canyon Schramm in 2nd, and again Team Drops in 3rd place. Our next classification, of course, is the Queen of the Mountains, and Tibco Silicon Valley Bank have ensured they've got that as well. 69 points to 51 with Drops in 2nd place. Joss Loudon certainly put up a big fight for Drops. But Tibco have been very, very clever in the way that they have focused on certain targets on each individual stage, and they've so far managed to bring them home. Here's our next classification. This is for the white jersey, and Canyon Schramm hold on to the white jersey by 1 point from Team Drops, with 2020 in 3rd place, again on the podium. But that will be very pleasing for Canyon Schramm. one of the teams who are linked very, very closely to the platform of Zwift that we've been racing on. Don't forget then we have the men's race coming up shortly as we take a look at our next classification. And this is the team classification. No surprises that Team Tibco Silicon Valley Bank are the winners of the team classification after 6 stages of racing. Canyon SRAM takes second place and drops. Very, very well done to that small British team in third place who got the wildcard invite to this virtual Tour de France. Well, over the last 6 stages, 3 weekends of racing, we have seen some great performances by the riders. We've got a chance to see them at home. Well, we've seen flat-out racing. We've seen the power of these women across the globe racing in the women's virtual Tour de France. Thanks very much for supporting all these great athletes. Coming up shortly will be the men's race. Well, over the last 5 stages, we've seen a dominant NTT team at the head of a lot of the classifications in the men's Tour de France. The men now getting ready to race over the same distance. NTT are the leaders of the yellow jersey, 391 points. Ryan Gibbons is the rider who will wear the yellow jersey on this virtual Champs-Élysées this afternoon. Green jersey also being led by Team NTT, a massive advantage over Mitchelton Scott, but as we saw earlier, it's not over yet. If you go after a classification, you can secure a huge amount of points this afternoon. The King of the Mountains is again with NTT. They've got 62 points. There are no King of the Mountains today. It's been worn by Maximilian Waldscheid of the NTT squad, and they will take home that jersey, no doubt whatsoever. The Best Young Rider classification again being worn by NTT. And this is worn today by Rasmus Tiller, and NTT have it, but it's still to be decided. It's not necessarily going to them. There's a few classifications still up for grabs. Here's the lineup of the field today, and as you can see, 4 times winner of the Tour de France, Chris Froome, is riding for Team Ineos this afternoon. Some big names on this final day. It's going to be interesting to see who wins this final sprint, or indeed whether a rider manages to break away. There's the run through of the 22 teams who are taken to the race start. And here's the profile, exactly the same as you have seen so far. And the riders will be riding this 6.6 kilometre course, 6 laps in total, with a little bit of a lead in as well. Brings the race distance to 42.8 kilometres. The riders then have been riding for 9 minutes.
Bonjour à tous et bienvenue sur les Champs-Élysées pour la 6e et dernière étape du Tour de France virtuel. La course est actuellement lancée. 6 tours des Champs-Élysées à effectuer pour une distance totale de 42,8 km, 23 équipes représentées. Hello and welcome on Radio Tour for stage 6 of the virtual Tour de France, the final stage of this edition on the Champs-Élysées. The race is currently underway. 6 laps of the circuit to be covered for a total distance of 42.8 kilometers, 23 teams represented.
The voice of Seb Piquet, the voice of Radio Tour of the Tour de France, as he brings to the start the riders in this virtual Tour de France, the way that he always does on the Champs-Élysées on the final day of the Tour de France. We've already gone through one of the intermediate sprints, and so we're heading towards the second. The riders certainly are not hanging around right now. We're rolling along at over 50 kilometers an hour. The pace is very, very high. And in the yellow jersey, Ryan Gibbons sitting in the group. He was the stage winner on stage number 1. As always, NTT are all together. They're on a training camp at the moment, and the team is all together being looked after. Ryan is alongside his strong squad that we have this afternoon. He's in yellow, Maximilian Walscheid in the King of the Mountains, Rasmus Tiller in the white jersey, Edvald Bosenhagen in the green jersey. And there's the concentration on these riders as they continue with their workload. If you'd like to get in touch this afternoon, please get in touch on Twitter @AntMcCrossan. And thanks very much for your messages. Wendy, thanks for your message saying you'd like to extend your thanks to the riders for taking part and giving us some racing to watch during this pandemic. Rasmus Tiller. There he is in the white jersey, rolling along at 448 watts. Just looked like he disappeared from his bike for a moment, but doing 49 kilometers an hour. And this is very, very fast indeed as we go through to complete another lap, and we're heading towards the second of our intermediate sprints. Slightly uphill now. So far, Mitchelton Scott have scored 19 points, so they are starting an assault on winning the green jersey in the same way that NTT did. The same way that Tipco did in the women's race. So who's going to lead through here and secure some points, because Mitchelton Scott are looking to try and take away the green jersey from the squad of NTT this afternoon. Not far then from the intermediate sprint. This is the German rider, Maximilian Walscheid, putting out 600 watts. That's power for you. 92 revs a minute. Just sitting there in the group, working his way towards the front, using his aero power up. You can see the little icon above him. And that will make him more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. So putting out nearly 600 watts and becoming more aerodynamic for 15 seconds puts Maximilian Walscheid in a strong position here as Benjamin Thomas tries to come up to his wheel. And also moving up is Ryan Gibbons. NTT looking for some points, but so are Mitchelton Scots. Going through towards the front now is one of the Mitchelton Scott riders, Eduardo Affini. Can he get there? Another Mitchelton Scott rider moves up, Luke Durbridge. Well, they're going for this, aren't they? So Durbridge goes through. He's the rider who leads across the line. Second place, Ryan Gibbons. Ben Thomas of Groupama FDJ in third place. Affini was also up there. One rider using his invisibility power up, so he engages that, makes him invisible to the other riders for 10 seconds, gives them the opportunity to attack. As the yellow jersey leads across the cobbles around the Arc de Triomphe. Doing that swooping turn around the western end of the Champs-Élysées through the Place de Charles de Gaulle. And at the front is Moran of the Cofidis team. More riders making their way towards the front, including the sprinter from Bahrain McLaren, Phil Bauhaus. A few riders being tailed off a little bit. 11.9 kilometers completed. Ryan Gibbons putting out 400 watts now as he makes his way up to 55 kilometers an hour. Our next intermediate sprint will be in 5 kilometers time. So we have a little bit of time for the riders to make their way down the far side of the Champs-Élysées. Rasmus Tiller is up towards the front now, doing almost 60 kilometers an hour. Talking to the riders. There's Ben Thomas of Groupama. 332 watts, rolling along at 60k an hour. It's a very good track rider as well, of course, Ben Thomas. As he just keeps the momentum going. Sweat pouring off him at the moment. Up towards the front is a winner of a stage, Matteo Dalcin of the rally cycling team. And a little aero power up being used by one of the Ineos riders, looks like Chris Lawless. In fact, Filippo Ganna. So Filippo Ganna up towards the front. What a wonderful bike rider he is. He rides on Zwift quite a lot. Level 17 rider on Zwift. He's ridden before the start of today, 2,052 kilometers on Zwift. And Chris Froome is there in a chasing group of riders. He's in the second group. Chris Froome just rolling along in the group. Certainly not flat out, is he? 172 watts. And there is Chris Froome. That's a nice place to ride outdoors. Nice camera angle of the rider, of course, who's won 4 Tour de France, 2 Vueltas, 1 Giro d'Italia. Chris with his shades on. Well, he's certainly working hard. And that looked to me like Luke Rowe on the right-hand side. So there's Luke Rowe. Luke just making sure he gets into camera shot behind Chris Froome. 14 kilometers completed. You must listen to the Luke Rowe and Geraint Thomas podcast. It's very entertaining. 28 kilometers to go. So Chris Froome won't be winning this afternoon stage unless he makes a miraculous recovery and makes his way back into the front group. In the front group, though, is Cameron Worth, who is one of the members of Team Ineos, wearing number 4. He's a pro bike rider who then turned to Ironman Triathlon. He rode Ironman Triathlon for a long time, and then he came back into Team Ineos after having been trained by Tim Kerrison, who's the coach of Ineos, and they just asked him whether he'd like to come back into pro cycling. He'd previously been a member of the Cannondale team. This is one of the Alpecin Fenix riders, Jonas Rijkaard. As the front rider uses his breakaway burrito, which makes you undraftable by other riders for 10 seconds. Jonas there in, looks like his garage, rolling along nicely. Our next sprint is 2.5 kilometers away now. Brian Cockard is having a good race today. There he is on the left-hand side. Brian Cockard, can he win the sprint on this virtual Champs-Élysées? Of course, Brian Cockard, a very good track rider as well as a road sprinter. Be interesting to see whether he can bring home this win this afternoon for his team. And there's the setup of NTT, who really have ensured that they have put everything into this. Interesting, you see the service course in the background, or the where they are in their training camp. Riders coming in, getting drinks and things. Edvald Boasson today in the green jersey, stage winner of the Tour de France. 31 seconds the front group have on the chasers. So those of you who've not seen racing on simulated racing before, this is the Zwift virtual Tour de France as we make our way up to complete another lap and we head towards the intermediate sprint. The riders are at home or on training camps or in hotels on their smart trainers. The game talks to the trainer basically and it shows them the gradients. It makes it feel like it does on a road. So if it's flat, it feels like it's flat. If you're going uphill on the gradient of the Champs-Élysées, then it does feel like you are racing uphill. So you get that feeling of the bike biting and you having to really put the power on to stay with the group. You can also draft within the peloton. So if you sit on the wheel of a rider, you are saving energy. So it's a very clever way of having simulated bike racing. And the effort is extremely hard. This is a stage winner, Matteo Dalcin, the wattage beluga as he's known. He had that wonderful stage victory on stage number 3. Surprised everybody, didn't he, on that day? Didn't surprise himself. I think he knew he had the form. 29 years of age. He's had a haircut since we saw him last time. Comes from Ottawa in Ontario. And he's the former Canadian road race champion. Well, this virtual platform is used now by thousands of cyclists across the world. They've ridden on it during lockdown. As we make our way towards the next of our intermediate sprints, so who's going to take it? Looks like a little bit of a contest at the front by a couple of riders. Gies van Hooker and Emil Sleepins. So the Latvian rider may well have been first across the line. Gies van Hooker was up there, Jimmy Janssens was just behind. But of course it's the team of Mitchelton Scott who need to close the gap on NTT at the moment. Points are given to the top 10 riders. I don't think Mitchelton Scott are doing enough to close the gap. So far they've got 36 points for today compared to 29 by NTT. So not a complete turnaround like we saw for Team Tibco compared to Canyon SRAM in the women's race. As we make our way around the Arc de Triomphe, 22 minutes of racing have gone and we are getting towards the halfway point in the race, and as we do so, and we've got a few kilometres to go to the next of our intermediate sprints, let's hear from a rider who won the first stage of this virtual Tour de France from NTT, Ryan Gibbons.
I think the main secret is that we've just been really committed. You know, prior to this, we spent a lot of time on Zwift, being forced indoors. So every single rider's been doing a lot of Zwift work. We've had team workouts, group races. So everyone kind of knows the platform really, really well, knows how to race, and we're super motivated. So it's really a great opportunity to show that. And again, you know, we've communicated well and had strategy at every race, and you know, it's proved. You know, leading in most categories, obviously we want to continue with that success. We've had a great showing thus far, and we definitely want to end the weekend on a high. Final 2 stages, obviously Saturday stage being Nelson Mandela Day, which is a very special day and an important day for us. The team has in the past had success on that day, so we're definitely aiming to do well on Saturday and then bring it home on the Champs-Élysées. So hopefully we can keep all jerseys.
Ryan Gibbons. Well, the NTT team certainly have done their sponsor proud. NTT, a main partner, of course, of the Tour de France. And they have taken this race extremely seriously. They have been up there in all the contests. They've been searching for points all the time. They've packed riders into the top places overall. They won stage number 1 with Ryan Gibbons. Edvald Bosenhagen was in 6th place. On stage number 2, they had Stefan de Bod in 6th place. The next stage, they had Ryan Gibbons in 5th place, Rasmus Tiller in 6th. And on stage number 4, they then had they had Michael Volgren, who was in 3rd place. And on stage 5, they had Pozzovivo, Menkes, de Bod, all in the top 4 places. Filippo Ganna heading towards the front for Team Ineos. Now the saddle at the moment. He's an incredible track rider, isn't he, Filippo Ganna? 23 years of age now. Third in the World Time Trial Championships in 2019. An incredible time trialist. Was the winner of the Paris-Roubaix Espoirs, of course. But the big question about Filippo Ganna is how fast he will end up riding the individual pursuit. Currently, the individual pursuit time is a 4:02 that he's already ridden. 4:02, 6:47 he rode on the 18th of November last year. But he thinks he can go under the 4-minute mark as far as an individual pursuit is concerned, as we take a look here at Cameron Worth, riding for Team Ineos. Cameron continuing with his effort in the main group of riders. Underneath the tunnel, and we come out the other side. We are at the midway point of the race now, 21.2 kilometers to go as we turn our way around the Place de la Concorde. And this group, in terms of numbers, I think it's around 25 riders by the looks of things. Ganna's now slipping towards the back of the group. For me, yep, there's 35 riders actually in that front group, so still quite a big group of riders underneath the red kite as we head towards the final 3 laps of racing. But there's still some big names in this front group in terms of who could win the bunch sprint. Phil Bauhaus is still here. Phil Bauhaus, one of the only riders who's won a race this season. Jimmy Janssens of Alpecin Fenix. Alpecin Fenix, pretty well known as the cyclocross team, but they're now becoming a very good road team because of Mathieu van der Poel, and the team is being built really round about him. As they work their way now up towards the completion of this lap at 51 kilometers an hour. In that front group then, Edvald Bosenhagen is there, Cameron Worth is there, Kunda Kort, Matteo Dalcin of Rally, Ryan Gibbons, Will Clark, who tried to win as well, of course, in the stage last weekend. Phil Bauhaus, winner of the Saudi Tour in 2020, is one of the last races that we rode before the lockdown. So Phil Bauhaus was riding really strongly in Saudi Arabia for the Bahrain McLaren squad. As the riders can see the Arc de Triomphe in front of them. Ryan Gibbons now producing over 400 watts just in this group. Edvald Bosenhagen there on the right hand side, you can see the concentration on him. He rides Zwift all the time. All the other members of the NTT team in the background getting drinks and gels and everything. Maybe they've just come in from a training ride. Face of Ryan Gibbons. Well, if they can bring this home, they will win this the first ever virtual Tour de France. Would be great news overall for this squad. We could see the archway in front of us as Brian Cockard goes to the front. Also in the group is Nicholas Zukowski, former under-23 national champion of his country. And Group Armour with Bruno Amaury now on the front of the peloton. So lots of teams represented on this final stage. Yesterday was really about the mountain climbers, as we see a few power-ups being ignited, including the featherweight power-up as we go underneath the intermediate sprint. And it looks like Janssens is going to take it for the Alpecin Fenix team. Ryan Gibbons, is he producing a little bit too much energy at the moment, using it up a bit too early to win today's stage? So the little van you can see above some of the riders now in the icon is the draft power-up. It increases the draft effect of the riders by 50% for 30 seconds. There's been a very interesting debate going on Twitter over the last 2 weeks about what sort of effort is required on Zwift to win a race. Here is Nicholas Zukowski riding for Rally Cycling. Nice little setup at home as he rolls along in the group. Now and then just mopping his brow of the sweat. And here is Brian Cockard, another bottle being given to him. It's very, very important to keep yourself as hydrated as possible. Always easy to tell Brian Cockard the way he rides a bike. Has a very heads-up style, doesn't he? Riding for the B&B Hotels team, Vital Concepts. And you kind of get the sense that Brian's missed out quite a lot of times on riding some of the big races. And if he did get in the mix, he's such a fast sprinter on the track that he could be a rider to really be concerned about in some of the finishing sprints if he got himself into these slightly bigger races, which the team's got ambitions to do. Right hand side then, NTT of 264 in the green jersey. Mitchelton Scott closing the gap a little bit. And confirmation of the last sprint was Janssens of Alpecin Phoenix, but Ryan Gibbons securing 9 points for his NTT team. Alpecin now in third place in that green jersey competition. They've moved themselves up the standings. For the start of today's stage, it was NTT the leaders, then Mitchelton Scott, then CCC. Here is Jonas Reichert. Getting a chance to see him this afternoon for this Alpecin team. It doesn't look like he's under huge pressure. 26 years of age is Jonas. He's won the Grote Prize Marcel Kind in 2017 and was fourth on a stage of the Pink Bank Tour in 2018, as well as finishing 15th in the Prudential Ride London Classic. Did ride some races this season. He started his season in the Tour of Antalya in Turkey. Then he rode Kuurne Brussels Kuurne and Le Samin before lockdown started in March, and then everything came to a halt. He rode 956 kilometres of racing during those 6 days of racing that he took part in. 15 kilometres to go. Edvald Bosenhagen always near the front of this peloton this afternoon. Remember, all the prizes in this Tour de France are all about the team classifications. So the riders at the finish will score points for the first 25 riders across the line. All those points will be added to the tally their team has already got. And here is Jonas Ruch, riding for the EF Education First team. I don't think he can beat the paint cave setup of Rigoberto Urán yesterday. But this 22-year-old German is rolling along in that group. He's finished 8th in Rundum Köln in 2019. Signed his contract with EF for 2020 and 2021. So he's got a 2-year contract. As one rider ignites a lightweight power-up, that's that little green icon above the yellow jersey of Ryan Gibbons. That reduces his body weight by 9.5 kilos, 15 seconds. So it gives him that little opportunity just to have a chance to recover within the group and use a little bit less energy. Under the red kite, 1 kilometre to go to complete this lap of racing. 34 minutes and 42 seconds have gone, 14.2 kilometres to go. Don't forget you can vote for your most aggressive rider of the day. most combative rider. If you go to @LeTour and look at the Twitter feed, there'll be a few names of riders and you can vote for your favourite rider and the rider will be awarded that. There's Luke Durbridge riding for the Mitchelton Scott team. Luke Durbridge looks pretty comfortable right now, a little bit hot maybe, but apart from that he looks like he's pretty composed sitting in this group of riders for Mitchelton Scott. He rides Zwift a lot during the lockdown. 3,766 kilometres he had completed before the start of today. He's a very powerful bike rider. He's certainly a rider you want on your team in a Grand Tour. 29 years of age. Stage winner in the Dauphiné, Oceania champion, 4 times the Australian time trial champion as well. He's the champion in 2020. As we go underneath the archway yet again, 2 laps of racing to go and a group of riders firmly now at the front of the race. Just up the hill a little bit, we reach the Green Arch as we get ready for our next intermediate sprint. If you'd like to join me on Twitter, @AntMcCrossan is where you can message me this afternoon. It's been lovely to hear from you over the 6 stages of racing. And just in front of us then, the intermediate sprint just coming up. Here's the stats. The maximum power by any of the riders, by the men, across 5 stages was Yashas Sutalin. 1,349 watts he put out in the racing, one of the stages that he took part in. That's a huge power output. That'll keep your lights on for a few hours at home. Heading towards the intermediate sprint then, we're getting ready for this one. This is our penultimate intermediate sprint of this virtual Tour de France. Towards the front then, Benjamin Thomas. He ignites his featherweight power up maybe just a little bit too early. And now we see Gijs van Hekke, who's the rider who's going to go for this one. There's a few riders really having to work hard to stay in the group. And first across the line is Gijs van Hekke, then Ben Thomas. And Thomas trying to go on the attack a little bit here. Jansen's in 3rd place. And Will Clark is always near the front at the moment. So Gijs van Hekke takes that. 437 watts for the CCC team. Chosen to go without a jersey today. It's way too hot where he is. We've seen all sorts of tactics employed by riders to just try and keep themselves cool. Heard Ella Harris had 2 huge fans, an aircon unit and a dehumidifier in her room. Brian Cockard. Little bit of a gurn now on his face as he tries to keep this effort going. Starting to hurt a little bit. Brian Cockard just rocking and rolling a little as we go back to Filippo Ganna. Can Ganna produce the sort of power that he does in an individual pursuit as we get towards the end of the race today and try and bring home this victory for Team Ineos? So far, Ethan Hayter has been their best performer. He finished 4th on stage number 3. Filippo Ganna, the heart rate monitor on. And he's chosen to cut the top off his cap this afternoon, let the hair come out a little bit. As we get a glimpse of Rasmus Tiller riding for NTT. He's the virtual white jersey. Just keeping the effort going, making sure he's hydrated. 23 years of age, comes from Norway. as we go back to the stage winner, Mateo Dalchin, the Canadian rider. He just looks so composed and easy, doesn't he? He's certainly working hard at 165 beats a minute, but at 56k an hour, he doesn't look like he's under any massive pressure. He's just concentrating, staying near the front, keeping things rolling on. And he said he learned a lot from Holden Komu, who is their coach of the team of rally cycling for this Zwift competition. And Holden has taught them about how the avatar moves within the game, how to recover, how to relax a little bit. 4 riders of NTT. They've done their team proud over the last few weeks, this entire squad, and they've brought in the likes of Lewis Menkes and Ben O'Connor as well to add to the firepower of this squad. Yesterday on Mandela Day, they almost brought home the victory. But they're certainly looking strong, aren't they? Look at Edvald Bosenhagen. 41 minutes of effort coming up to the last 9 kilometers of racing. Now these riders need to start to get ready for what's going to be a very, very hard sprint. I'd like to see the power outputs of the riders when we start the sprint going. Next time round, they'll get the bell with 1 lap to go. Simon Clark now towards the front. It's his birthday this weekend. So he's celebrating that by riding here on Zwift. Dalchin in second place. Ryan Gibbons. Maximilian Waldscheid is still in here. Rasmus Tiller, 23 years of age, as we said. There's Will Clark, riding for Trek Segafredo. They had a stage victory on stage 2 with Julien Bernard, who won ahead of Freddie Ovett in second, and then Nicolas Ede in third. Michael Woods that day took 4th place. Will Clark tried to win the stage. He attacked a little bit too early on the run into the finish line. So we'll see whether Will can manage to time this finish a little bit better this time and try and win the stage. The white jersey of Rasmus Tiller at the front, underneath the red kite now, with 1 kilometre to go to complete the penultimate lap. Tiller, the Norwegian champion, comes from Trondheim in Norway. Been 5th in a race called the Trobro Leon, which is an on and off road kind of race. Ganna now at the front with Cameron Worth also with him. Green jersey of Edvald Bosenhagen. He's even got the green bike to match this afternoon. Bosenhagen could be a race favourite here. There's Bruno Amaury for Groupama FDJ. He's had a good race so far. And a small group of riders as we make our way to the final 7 kilometres of racing. The final lap, 6.6 kilometres. So Phil Bauhaus now near the front for Bahrain McLaren, looking to try and bring home their first victory in this virtual Tour de France. Cameron Worth up near the front as well, last lap. So the riders getting themselves ready. This is going to be a very fast 6.5 kilometres. We've got 1 more intermediate sprint just in front. The points classifications. Well, for me, the green jersey is still on the shoulders of NTT, but they've got to be vigilant at the finish. Bosenhagen just staying on the right-hand side in the green. Last time he went just a little bit too early. Cockard getting himself ready for the sprint as well. You really have to get yourself motivated because this hurts a lot. Remember, we will decide the white jersey at the finish line. The top 10 riders who were born after the 1st of January 1995 will score points. And it's a very close contest between NTT and Ineos. Ineos, I'm not certain, have got the riders here to win that jersey now in this final sprint. They would have looked for Chris Lawless, but I don't see Lawless in this front group of riders. Getting set for the final intermediate sprint then. We're 200 metres away. Heading up towards the green Skoda Arch. We go underneath that with Janssens and Zukowski in the lead. Just behind is Cockard. And only 10 more points now for the green jersey at the finish line. Alpes and Fenix have moved themselves up in the standings, judging by the performance today of Jimmy Janssens, who's ensured that they've scored 80 points in the competition this afternoon. NTT have scored 49, Mitchell Scott have scored 40. Round the Virtual Arc de Triomphe at the western end of the Champs-Élysées. Opened in 1836 as we make our way downhill for the final time. The Eiffel Tower Virtual over on the right-hand side, opened in 1889. As the riders all now get ready for this finishing sprint. We're already at 50k an hour on this Zwift platform. At the front is Bosenhagen, Werf, Simon Clark of EF, Jonas Rijkaard. Maximilian Walscheid moves up, so does Filippo Ganna. Kevin Reza also near the front of the group as well. Kevin Reza, teammate of Brian Cockard. As we get confirmation of the final sprint of the day, Janssens takes 10 points, Zukowski 9, Cockard takes 8. So another good performance there by the Alpes and Fenix team. Fast downhill now, just inside 4 kilometres to go. Here's all the riders across the world. Right in the centre, Sylvain Dillier, second in the Paris-Roubaix. Bahrain McLaren with Fred Wright. Luke Durbridge working hard. Here is Luke Durbridge. Just trying to keep his position. The front group of riders is now in total 34 riders in with a chance, and Durbridge is one of them, and he's the most combative rider of the day. So Luke Durbridge voted by all of you as the most combative, most aggressive rider on today's stage. Now we've got 3 kilometres to go. We're getting ready for this final sprint of the Virtual Tour de France. All these riders already at round about 4 to 6 watts per kilo. They've got to think about their power-ups. Are they going to use them on their at the perfect time on the run into the finish? Near the front is Edvald Bosenhagen, who last time went way too early in the finishing sprint. So can he time this right? That was on stage number 1, but the race was won by his teammate Ryan Gibbons, so it didn't really matter. 2.5 kilometres to go as we swoop left and head towards the final run-in to the Champs-Élysées. Bosenhagen is getting ready. Ryan Gibbons is out the saddle, getting himself ready. A little bit of last encouragement. Matteo Dalcin, can he win on the Champs-Élysées here? He's up towards the front already. He's in a huge gear, getting himself ready for this final sprint. 2.1 kilometres to go. It's been a tough race. Now it's about who can get this right. Matteo getting himself ready. Filippo Ganna concentrating hard, isn't he? You can see the eyes really focused on the screen in front. But at the front of the peloton, Matteo Dalcin, Ryan Gibbons, Gies van Hooker, Cameron Werf, Kunda Koort, Brian Cockard, Luke Durbridge. We are 1,700 metres now from the finish line. We're going to go underneath the tunnel. Here's the peloton catching a group of riders who are back markers. Rasmus Tiller is up there. Edvald Bosenhagen towards the front of the group now. Another big attack. It comes from Benjamin Thomas of Groupama FDJ as he accelerates through the tunnel and tries to go away. Will Clark is on his wheel nice and early. Bruno Amaury is also there. So 2 riders from Groupama now going clear. This is a good little move by this squad. So Bruno Amaury and Ben Thomas are the 2 leaders as we go underneath the red kite. They have 1 second on the rest of the riders. Look at the power. 7.8 watts per kilo as Ryan Gibbons tries to move up 53 kilometers an hour. Amaury now at 7.2 watts per kilo, still with a slight advantage of 1.5 seconds. They've still got a little bit of a distance on the rest of the peloton. Moving up is Edvald Bosenhagen in the green jersey. Cockard is on the wheel in 5th place. Ben Thomas, look at that, he's in full time trial mode as he tries to stay away with his teammate, putting out nearly 500 watts, doing 55 kilometers an hour. But they are caught, and they're caught by Cockard, they're caught by Edvald Bosenhagen. The right-hand turn now as we make our way towards the finish. Edvald Bosenhagen unleashes his sprint. A power-up being used by Cockard as he looks for his aero power-up. Ryan Gibbons now makes his move in the yellow jersey. Gibbons uses the draft power-up, makes him less draftable by 50%, but Will Clark comes through. Who is going to take it on the line? It was a really close sprint, but I think it was a win for Trek Segafredo, and I think it was a win for Will Clark, ahead of Filippo Ganna of Team Ineos, and then Ryan Gibbons in 3rd place. What a sprint by Will Clark on that run into the finish. We're just waiting for confirmation. Look at the face of Edvald Bosenhagen. He knows he's been in a bike race. Will Clark is the winner of stage 6 of the virtual Tour de France. Well, he almost won it a couple of weeks ago. He just didn't quite get his sprint right, but he's got his sprint right this time. Will Clark wins ahead of Filippo Ganna and Ryan Gibbons in 3rd place. Edvald Bosenhagen went so early to try and lead out Ryan Gibbons. The face of Edvald Bosenhagen. Ryan Gibbons finishes in 3rd place today, but NTT will secure the yellow jersey. Stage 6 on the Champs-Élysées, 51 minutes of racing. Will Clark of Trek Segafredo takes the win ahead of Filippo Ganna of Team Ineos, with Ryan Gibbons of NTT in 3rd place. NTT, another great day. 4 of their riders in the top 10. There's no doubt who's going to win this virtual Tour de France. Tiller is there in 4th. Wildscheid in 6th. Bosenhagen in 9th place. Here's the finishing sprint. Bosenhagen unleashed his power-up. Then we saw Will Clark with an aero power-up. Makes him more aerodynamic for 15 seconds. He ignited it at the perfect time. And just as it looked like the yellow jersey was going to win on the Champs-Élysées in the same way we saw in the women's race, Will Clark outwitted them all. Great win by the Australian. Will Clark, a stage winner in the Tour Down Under, stage winner in the Herald Sun Tour. Did ride the UAE Tour this year before lockdown, but he got that sprint absolutely right. Well, we'll hear from him shortly about that victory today. NTT And Ryan Gibbons. Gibbons, the winner of stage number 1 that set NTT up so well to win this virtual Tour de France overall. They're going to have a huge points tally at the end of this. And in a moment we're going to hear from the winner of today's stage, Will Clark of the Trek Segafredo team. So 2 stage wins for Trek Segafredo, with Julian Bernard also taking a stage on stage number 2. EF won stage 5 and Israel won stage 4. NTT stage 1, Rally stage 3. So the stage victories have been mixed around amongst the teams. Here's the replay of the sprint. Postnagen just used that power up a little bit too early. Will Clark used his to perfection. Clark had the aero power up. You can see that little aero hat above him just as he made his way into the final few hundred meters. Thank you to all of you for joining us. There's the riders across the world. We're going to hear from the winner of the stage in just a few moments' time. But we might not have seen the riders out on the road, but at least we've got a glimpse of the champions that we love watching on the road normally. We've seen them riding on this virtual platform, putting out huge amounts of power. Will Clark then has been a pro since 2009. Look at the finish sprint of NTT. Will Clark then wins ahead of Filippo Ganna. Ryan Gibbons in 3rd place. The average watts, over 5 watts per kilo for that entire race of 42.8 kilometres. So if you've enjoyed seeing what you have been watching over the last few weeks and you're a fan of cycling and you just want to have a go, well, you can get on this platform very easily. You join the Zwift platform, you get a smart trainer at home, and then you can ride alongside some of your favourite riders if you can. Sometimes there are group rides, races and everything else. Well, we're getting ready then to hear, we're not going to hear first of all from Will Clark, we're going to hear from our yellow jersey team director, I think. So here we are, here's the classification. The winners of the virtual Tour de France, the winners of the yellow jersey, NTT Pro Cycling, they secured 500 points. Rally Cycling in 2nd place, there's no doubt. NTT put everything into this and it came up trumps. They take the overall win with 500 points, with Trek Segafredo with a great performance in 3rd place with 2 stage victories. Well, it's been a lot of work between the Tour de France and Zwift to bring this platform together, but it's been great fun to bring us some Some entertainment over the last few weeks. We're going to hear from the sport director of NTT. Doug Ryder, good afternoon. A very warm welcome as the team owner of NTT. What a wonderful performance by your riders over the last 6 stages. You've got a little bit of Prosecco or champagne there. What does it mean to you as a team to bring home the win in the first ever virtual Tour de France?
Yeah, thank you, Ant. I mean, it is brilliant. You know, this is an amazing opportunity for us to engage in a platform that's uniquely different. And I think it's here to stay for sure, this platform. But yeah, to win the first virtual Tour de France is exceptional for our team. We've put a lot of effort into this. NTT has put, and the race center has put a lot of effort into it, showing all the analytics and the data that you can see on screen, which is, kind of brings the fan base closer to the riders than ever. And I think for the ASO to put this event on and for Zwift to have such an amazing platform, this is definitely here to stay, and we're super excited to have won this first virtual Tour de France for sure.
Well, we've loved watching you. It's been you can see how the team has come together. You've all been together screaming at the riders and doing that. But, there's a lot of pain across the world right now. And I think your team has brought a great load of entertainment. Have you felt that from the fans over the last 3 weeks?
Absolutely. I mean, this just to be able to connect with people and the fan base in a different way and use technology and platforms like this to engage with people and give them hope. Our team races to provide hope and opportunities to so many kids and communities around South Africa. And then for us to be able to engage with them, with a fan base, is absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun and long may it last.
And finally, the team, obviously, you want to get back out on the road now, but a little celebration tonight before you get out there and start racing?
Absolutely. I mean, if you saw today, our riders came back from a 6-hour ride on our training camp here in Tuscany, and they all wanted to support the final 4 in this final, virtual stage of the Tour de France. And so it just shows our unity and the way this team has come together. You really look forward to pinning numbers on our jerseys and going out there and racing the real Tour de France and other races and getting closer to our fan base again. So yeah, this was a great way to end a time where everybody's been suffering, and we look forward to being out on the open road.
Doug, wonderful to talk to you. Always a pleasure. Congratulations to you and Team NTT Pro Cycling for the win in the virtual Tour de France.
Cheers.
Wonderful to hear then from Doug Ryder, the team owner of Team NTT. He's taken that team from a tiny little African team to a world-class sporting squad. Confirmation that Will Clark took the victory. 51 minutes and 44 seconds ahead of Filippo Ganna and Ryan Gibbons in 3rd place on this virtual Champs-Élysées. You kind of get lost in it though and start to pick out the points across the route that we all get to enjoy on this final day of the Tour de France. Well, I think NTT really have. Team NTT really have put everything into this. Another squad who've really benefited and done well is Trek Segafredo. So we're going to hear now from Will Clark, the winner of the final stage of the virtual Tour de France. Will Clark, the winner of the final stage of the virtual Tour de France. Talk us through that run-in. It looked like you ignited a power-up just with a few 100 meters to go. How tough was that final effort?
Yeah, I guess the last week I sort of went too early in the sprint, and I figured out how far I went too early last week, and made sure this week that I timed it right. But yeah, it was still hard to pass everyone. I came from a long way back.
You certainly did. You came from a long way back, but Trek Segafredo have done really well in this race, haven't they? With Julien winning and you winning, it's been a big team effort, I guess.
Yeah, like Julien, started it off really well, and after that, the goal was try and finish up there in the classification, and also trying to win win one more stage. So 2 wins is, it's a good result for the team, I think.
And finally, you know, we're looking forward to seeing all you guys back out on the road very, very soon. But how much of on Zwift as a physical effort is this compared to a training session out on the road or a race? It does look physically really hard.
Yeah, it is. It is really hard. Basically I had to do 400 watts for an hour and then sprint at the end. So, but it's also a lot of spikes and surges. Sometimes you're pushing over 500 or 600 watts to try and not get dropped, because half the thing is to try and stay far enough to the front that you don't get dropped. So yeah, that's a trick, I think.
Well, thank you very much. It's been wonderful to see you race, and well done on winning the first ever finish on the Champs-Élysées in a virtual Tour de France. Congratulations, Will.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good fun. Thanks.
Will Clark, then the winner of the final stage of the virtual Tour de France here on our virtual Champs-Élysées. Gives you an idea just how tough this race is. It's extremely hard. Here's our classifications then. Green jersey, NTT Pro Cycling take this. I think you know how this is going to play out. 293 points. Alpecin Fenix in second with 143. Mitchelton Scott gave it a go today, but it's NTT Pro Cycling who take the green jersey home. Our next classification. This is the King of the Mountains. It was decided yesterday. NTT Pro Cycling again take this classification home. EF Pro Cycling in second, with Israel, who led that classification for quite a while, in third place. Next classification, let's take a look at the white jersey. Well, it started on the shoulders of NTT. It was a contest between them and Ineos, and NTT manages to hold on to the white jersey as well. So they pretty much won all the classifications. Ineos second, Groupama FDJ in third place. The gap was closed just a little bit, but not enough to trouble the dominant squad, Team NTT. The Eiffel Tower in the background there. Here's our next classification. The team, well, there's no doubt, is there. NTT absolutely thrashed the rest of the squads. 923 points to Rally with 398, and Trek Segafredo, courtesy of their wins in stages, in third place, 360. But NTT set out their stall on day one and they were never in doubt. Well, we've had a wonderful 3 weekends of racing across the world. We know that everybody has been in lockdown. They've been unable to go out, ride their bikes and everything else. Sports events across the world have been cancelled. We hope we've brought you just a little bit of entertainment, and we wish you a healthy and a safe next few months. From all of us here at the virtual Tour de France on Zwift, bye for now. Thanks very much, everybody.